Martin Necas of the Carolina Hurricanes is like Thanos. He's collecting these teams that are interested in him like Infinity Stones, just collecting them one after the other with cool colors and everything in between. Because today, we are going over to what Frank Seravalli said in regards to yet another team being interested in Necas. The tweet comes to us from the Grindline folks. Big shout out over to the Grindline pod. Always appreciate their work. Frank Seravalli says the Detroit Red Wings are in pursuit of Martin Necas. Would it be a great addition? Yes. Is it worth an overpay? No, they say. Now, the thing is, this is a very basic tweet, it's a simple idea, but I wanted to go out there and talk about the Red Wings getting Necas, because, honestly, we've had the same conversation about this player, like, 5 different times with 5 different teams. Oh, he's good, he can help the team improve, he can score goals. Like, that's usually the verdict that we come to here. But with Martin Necas being the guy that he is, and producing the amount of points that he has, it's interesting because we all recognize that there can be potential for more. This season, he had 53 points in 77 games played, 9 points in 11 games in the playoffs, but last year he did produce more in the regular season. 71 points in 82 games, he was the number 1 point guy for Carolina. This season, though, the Canes expressed that they wanted to go further and more devoted in the direction of Seth Jarvis. They have other guys near the top of their lineup that they just preferred to play more, and because Martin Necas, this offensive forward and speedster, has his contract expiring this season, it opens the door for him to potentially get traded, sign a deal somewhere else where he can be utilized more, and be put near the top of the lineup once again. The thing is, with the Detroit Red Wings, you have one guy who is probably, maybe, 50-50 going to leave in Patrick Kane. You have other guys that can rotate around in the top or the second line if you really needed them to. Larkin, DeBrincat, Raymond, these guys can all rotate around. If you forced one of them to play in the second line, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And because there is that flexibility, because you can swap these wingers around, you'll probably have Larkin as the number 1 C, and you'll probably have Raymond as the number 1 right wing, but we have seen certain moments where sometimes things get switched a little bit. It opens the door for an opportunity here that Martin Necas just simply wouldn't have if he was playing in Carolina again. The only difference here is that the Red Wings would need to acquire Necas first, they would probably need to trade for him, and then they would sign him to whatever deal is appropriate. Now, Steve Yzerman, I've noticed this a lot over the past few years, but he usually does a fairly alright job in re-signing RFAs, guys that are already restricted and within the rights of the teams. He normally hands out contracts that Wings fans are generally okay with, and I think the only one that's a little bit iffy at this point is Alex DeBrincat, but that wasn't really Steve Yzerman's fault. I think that more so lies with the player that was signed instead. It's these UFAs that Steve Yzerman goes out there and usually ends up overpaying one way or another. The Kops, the Comfers, maybe the Dakota Joshuas, who really knows. So because Martin Necas is an RFA, there is some restriction there. I don't really fear what Steve Yzerman would do had he had the opportunity to sign this guy to a longer-term contract. Bring him over to Detroit, have him play with, let's say, Larkin and Raymond if you wanted to force that, or have him play with a DeBrincat or whatever if you wanted to put him on the same line. Heck, Necas can play center if you wanted to move one of Kopp or Comfort down to the third line and have Necas as your secondary punch after Dylan Larkin. That makes a lot of sense. You can do a lot of things with 2 very good caliber centers. And of course, no disrespect to Comfort and Kopp, but moving these guys down one spot makes the rest of the core even better down the middle. Not to mention the fact that Necas is only 25 years old, he fits the timeline here. If the Wings are going to start being competitive and consistent now, if they're going to squeak into the playoffs in 24-25, then Necas' age range aligns right in where this team could be competitive and grow up alongside of each other, and Necas is right there in the fight. He's just a little bit younger than Dylan Larkin after all. And I honestly feel like a broken record because we have this same conversation every single time. Oh yeah, Necas is good and he'll improve whatever team he gets added onto. Fantastic! Like, there's nothing new to learn about here when you acknowledge that Necas is a good player. But just learning now that Steve Yzerman is in the mix here and that he would be interested in getting this guy, it does have me intrigued as to where this could go should Yzerman get it done. As the Grindline guys said, he's probably a good addition, but the price, that is the contest here. Is it worth it to overpay for a Martin Necas? Because The ideas floating around Carolina right now is that they want themselves a top player. They want themselves an elite player that can replace this guy who is pretty much an elite player too. I mean, Necas, I'd say that label is appropriate for him. Maybe not in Carolina in particular because he was playing down the lineup, but still. The Canes want some top-line talent, and if it is somebody coming over from Detroit, I question where exactly that value is going to come from. The Wings may have to give up a defenseman, or maybe a younger defenseman. The Hurricanes need some of those. So would you be willing to depart with a guy like, I don't know, Simon Edvinsson? Just tossing a name out there, not saying it's going to happen, but just in case. Or an Axel Sandin-Pellikka. The Canes love their right-handed offensive-minded defenseman. Maybe that's something that gets it done. In fact, I think it would get it done. It's just whether or not you, as a Red Wings fan, would be okay with that. The overpay is going to be pretty significant here, considering there's like 7 other teams that want Martin Necas for themselves too. I'd say that Steve Yzerman hasn't necessarily been the worst at making trades. He's been okay, like pretty middle of the pack, I would say. There are some trades that have aged poorly and some that have looked okay, but for the most part, if Steve Yzerman is negotiating and trying to get this trade to go through, if he wants Necas for the Wings, I think you're probably going to have to depart with a prospect that a lot of Wings fans would not want to see given up in any circumstance, even if it is for a Martin Necas-like piece coming back. But of course, you have to go with the what-ifs as well, like what if you trade away ASP, Axel Sandin-Pellikka's going over to Carolina, Necas comes over to Detroit, and all of a sudden next year he's an 80-point guy. What if he's an 80, 85-point guy, he gets Larkin up to 90 points, and the Wings make the playoffs in the first wild card, not the second? What if Necas is the best player in the playoffs? Last year, he was one of those. I mean, this previous season, he had 9 points, 11 games played, just behind Andrei Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho, tied with the Seth Jarvises and Jake Gensels of the world. This was a pretty good player. We know he is capable of producing wherever he is, even if he's not being given the primetime minutes. So, if Necas is able to do that with Detroit, if he's able to be that good, then do you actually think about it more? Do you think about trading away an Axel Sandin-Pellikka more because you want to see what a Necas can do with this team? You want goal scorers versatile throughout the lineup. You want DeBrincat, you want Necas, you want Raymond, and then the rest of the third and fourth line guys who could also bring in some offensive touch too when you bring Kopp and Comfort down. This could make sense, but is it worth it? That's the ultimate question here. So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. 2 questions. Firstly, actually 3 questions, let's just say. Firstly, is it worth it, in your opinion, for the Red Wings to chase Martin Necas? There are a bunch of teams after him. CVY will be one of many trying to get this to go through. Is it worth it to make this trade? Second question, what's the extension that you give out to this guy, assuming he does get traded to Detroit? There's a number that he wants. We'll take a look at what it is later on, but if it's like an 8-year contract, let's say $7.5 million a year, 7.75, 8 million, maybe it's a little less than that, 7 flat, who really knows? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think Necas should go for on the RFA market negotiations? And thirdly, what do you think the Red Wings have to give up for Martin Necas in order for that trade to go through? What are you comfortable giving up? Just because something is worth that amount doesn't mean you'd be willing to pay it. So if it's a mix of prospects and picks or maybe a roster player that you think is valuable, what is the price that you think Necas should go for, and would you be willing to pay it if the Carolina Hurricanes twisted your arm and forced you to make an answer? If you say no, then okay, let me know your thoughts in the comment section as well. Martin Necas, Detroit Red Wings, yay or nay? Hurricanes fans as well, you can let me know your thoughts as to what you would want from Steve Yzerman and the Wings in order to make a Necas trade go through. Would a package from Detroit be better than any of the other packages you have seen from other teams that have been involved here? We have seen the Canadiens, the Canucks, the... oh my goodness, what else? The Columbus Blue Jackets, I think, were in there. The Calgary Flames, the Philadelphia Flyers. What's the price on this guy, too? Is it 7 mil? Does he want more than that? Does he get 6.5? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.